Now that we've got a virtual machine up and running, it's time to learn how to connect to it, hopefully in a somewhat convenient way. Now, although you can use your virtualization tool, for example, I'm using Hyper-V here, and connect and get into the console directly. Okay, here we go. I don't tend to do this very often. It's really only if something really goes wrong. Most of the time I connect through an operation called SSH. Now, in order for this to work, you are going to need to know what your IP address is. So you can use the console, of course, to figure this out, and you'll see here, well, I've got a couple of IP addresses. I've got 192.168.68.12 and 13, but I'm going to be using just 12 for this time. And we've already used a fixed IP address, so normally we wouldn't really need to come in here and check this thing. So I'm going to leave myself logged out of this most of the time. And I'm going to show you two ways today to connect. And I'm going to tell you of a third way, but unfortunately I can't demonstrate it on this particular computer. All right, so the first way is normally if I'm running Windows as the machine that I'm sitting in front of and I want to connect to my Ubuntu machine, I will use a program called PuTTY. Okay, a very simple program. It's very quick to download. You can download just the exe, no installation required. When you double click on this, it'll ask you for the IP address, which I know is 192.168.68.12. Port number, leave it alone, it's 22, and the connection type is SSH. And all you do is you click here, and it'll ask you for a username and, of course, a password. And as long as you provide that correctly, everything will be fine. Now, if this is actually the first time that you've connected to a particular machine, you're going to be asked for some extra information. Okay, so I think I can demonstrate this. Unfortunately, it didn't ask me this time because I'd already connected, but let me run a second time. And let me connect to 192.168.13. Now, I've never connected to a 192.168.68.13, so as a result, what's going to happen is I'm going to get a security alert from PuTTY saying, hey, I've never seen this machine before. Do you actually trust this host? And if you do, you can click ahead. You can go ahead and click on yes, and it'll save it into a cache so that it won't ask you this again. So I'm just going to cancel this one, so we'll leave that one perhaps for a future demo as well. Okay, if you do say yes, the next time that you log in, you won't be asked for this. Okay, so now that's all there is to connect. You can try the following as well before before downloading PuTTY. What you can do is you can run a command prompt, and what you're going to find is that in some cases, Windows may already have an SSH client already installed and working. So on this particular machine, I've already installed the SSH client, but something here is wrong and it's failing. So unfortunately, I won't be able to show you this working. I looked for a little bit, but I just really don't have the time right now to track down what this problem is. So, but I will do a quick demonstration. What I would normally do is I would type SSH, followed by a space, followed by the username you're trying to connect us with, 192.168.68.12. And what should happen is I should be asked for my password, but unfortunately something isn't quite correct here. So I know that there's a program ssh.exe is being downloaded, but it has not appeared in the usual location. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Something for me to track down at another time. I'll put a video sometime. But the strange thing is I've got 2 or 3 other machines here at the house that work perfectly fine. And to make things even a little bit stranger, it seems to know about it if you run it through PowerShell. Okay, so here I can actually demonstrate 192.168.68.12, and this is what it would end up looking like. So because this is the first time I've connected using PowerShell, it's asking about the key. So yes, I'd like to hang on to it. And then of course it asks me for my password. So you might say, well, why would I use PuTTY rather than using this PowerShell SSH command? I find the PowerShell stuff is just a little bit slow on my system. I'm not sure why this is, so I just won't be using it. So most of the time on this particular computer, I use PuTTY to make the connection. Okay, so now if you do not have a Windows computer and you are instead working on Mac, okay, well, good news, I can demonstrate this as well. Okay, so here is Mac. Okay, so the way how I run this in Mac is I start up the launcher and I look for a program called Terminal. Okay, and this is the terminal program. All right, and in order to connect to onto your Linux machine, we use the command SSH. Hey, yeah, and this is built into a Mac already, so you shouldn't have any problems like what I saw under Windows. You provide exactly the same connection. So SSH Robert at 192.168.68.12, and if it was the first time that you've connected, and this is not, then you'd be asked, do you trust the machine? Would you like to hang on to the thumbprint? I've already connected before, so it's not asking me to save it. And of course, the only thing I need to do is provide a password. Okay, and now I'm connected. All right, so now all of the rest of the demonstrations that I'm going to be doing in this part of the website is almost for sure going to be done using SSH on a Mac. And what I will do is I will make the font a little bit bigger so it's a bit easier to see for all the other recordings. And this is what we're going to be using from here on out. Okay, but of course, if you want to use PuTTY because you're on Windows, that's completely fine. Apparently, there is a copy of PuTTY available for Mac, but I don't know anything about it, so you'll be kind of on your own for that one. Okay, but in any case, that's the way how we go about dealing with making our connections. And of course, the good news is once you have your Linux server running on one of the computers, you can actually reach it from any of your other computers on the same network without any issues. Okay, so that's it for today's.